Family doesn't stab you in the back. Or so I thought. My uncle's voice, smug and sharp, echoed, "Brevis, you're too young to run this." I'm Brevis, 26, a carpenter who inherited my dad's furniture workshop. Losing him gutted me, but my uncle's betrayal cut deeper. I used to think loyalty was blood. Now I know better. Sometimes, you fight fire with fire. The workshop smelled like cedar and sweat, the kind of scent that clings to your clothes and never lets go. It was Dad's place, his life's work. Rows of half-finished tables, chairs waiting for their final polish, tools hung like soldiers on the wall. I was 26, still learning to fill his boots, when a heart attack took him. One day he was sanding a walnut slab, laughing about my crooked cuts. The next he was gone. The silence in the shop was louder than any saw. I'd walk in every morning, run my fingers over his workbench, and feel my chest tighten. This was all I had left of him. I'd been running the place for 3 months, barely sleeping, when Uncle Victor showed up. He wasn't a fun uncle type. No warm hugs or bad jokes. He was Dad's older brother, a man with a pressed shirt and a smile that never reached his eyes. "Brevis," he said, leaning against the shop door, "you're doing okay. But this is a man's business." His voice was smooth, like he was selling me something. I gripped the chisel in my hand, the wood handle biting into my palm. "I'm managing," I said, keeping my tone even. He chuckled, a low sound that made my jaw clench. "Managing's not thriving, kid." Victor started coming around more, always with advice I didn't ask for. "You need to update the books," he'd say, flipping through Dad's old ledgers like they were his. "Clients want modern designs, not your dad's relics." Each word was a jab, but I swallowed my anger. He was family, and Dad always said family sticks together. I'd nod, force a smile, and go back to sanding, my knuckles white around the sandpaper. But I noticed things, clients hesitating when Victor lingered, employees glancing at me like I was already losing control. One evening, I stayed late, planing a cherrywood board. The shop was quiet, just the scrape of metal on wood. Victor's car pulled up outside. I heard his voice through the open window, low and sharp, talking on his phone. The kid's in over his head. "I'll have the papers ready soon." My stomach dropped. Papers? I crouched by the window, breath shallow, heart pounding like a hammer. He was pacing, his shadow long across the gravel. "Trust me, it's easy. He's got no fight in him." I stood there, frozen, the plane still in my hand. My throat burned, not with tears but with something heavier. Rage, maybe, or betrayal. Dad trusted Victor. I trusted Victor. But that call, those words, they were a blade to the gut. I wanted to storm out, slam him against his car, demand answers. But my feet wouldn't move. My hands trembled, the tools slipping from my grip. I wasn't just fighting to keep the shop. I was fighting to keep Dad's name alive. And Victor? He was ready to bury it. The shop's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I sat on Dad's old stool, staring at the half-finished table. My pulse hadn't slowed. Victor's car was gone, but his words echoed. I could still hear Dad's voice. "Build something strong, Brevis. It'll outlast you." I didn't know if I was strong enough. But I knew one thing. Victor was wrong about me. He thought I had no fight. What he didn't know was I was already sharpening my fists. The workshop used to feel like home, but Victor turned it into a battlefield. Every morning, I'd walk in, the smell of fresh-cut oak grounding me, only to see him already there, leaning over my employees like he owned the place. "Brevis is learning," he'd say, loud enough for everyone to hear, "but he's got a ways to go." His smile was a blade, and I felt it twist every time. My guys, Tom, who'd been with Dad for years, and Sarah, who could carve better than anyone, started looking at me differently. Hesitant, like I was a kid playing boss. My jaw tightened each time I caught their glances, but I kept my mouth shut. Dad taught me to pick my fights. Victor wasn't just talking. He was moving pieces. He'd linger with clients, dropping lines about new management and fresh ideas. One day, I saw him hand Mr. Callahan, our biggest client, a sleek business card with his name on it. Not the shop's. Callahan's eyebrows went up, and he shot me a look that felt like a punch. "You okay with this, Brevis?" he asked. I nodded, my throat dry, my hands stuffed in my pockets to hide the trembling. "Yeah, we're good." I lied. Victor clapped my shoulder, his grip too tight. "See? The kid trusts me." My stomach churned, but I forced a smile, the kind that hurt my face. That night, I was locking up when I heard Victor's voice again, this time from the back office. The door was cracked, and I froze, my keys biting into my palm. "He's not ready," Victor said into his phone, his tone low, like a predator. "I've got the lawyer drafting the transfer. The shop's mine by next month." My heart slammed against my ribs. Transfer? The shop was Dad's blood, my blood. I pressed myself against the wall, breath shallow, sweat beading on my neck. "He's too soft," Victor went on. "Won't even see it coming." I want to kick the door down, grab him by his press collar, make him choke on those words. But I didn't. I stood there, silent, my pulse a hammer in my ears. The next day, I watched Victor closer. He'd stroll in, all charm, telling Tom how to fix a lathe he'd used for a decade. He'd correct Sarah's designs, her face tightening as she nodded. My chest burned, not just for me, but for them. They were Dad's people, loyal to his name. Victor was poisoning that. I started noticing his game. Small lies to clients, whispers to suppliers about changes coming. Every word was a step towards stealing what Dad built. My hands itched to do something, anything, but I remembered Dad's voice. A man's strength is in his patience. I wasn't patient by nature. At night, alone in the shop, I'd pace, the sawdust crunching under my boots. My knuckles were raw from clenching, my sleep gone. Victor thought he had me cornered, thought I was weak, but he didn't know I'd hurt him. He didn't know I was listening, watching, waiting. And he didn't know that the kid he called Soft was already planning to burn his world down. The workshop felt heavier now, like the air itself was pressing down on me. Victor's voice echoed in my head, calling me soft, calling me nothing. I decided to let him believe it. Every morning, I'd walk in with my shoulders slumped, my eyes down, letting his barbs slide off like I didn't care. "You're in over your head, Brevis," he'd say, leaning back in Dad's old chair like it was his throne. I'd nod, mutter, "Maybe you're right," and watch his smirk widen. My stomach twisted, but I kept my face blank, my hands busy with a chisel. Each scrape of wood was a count of my restraint, each curl of oak a reminder to stay sharp. Victor ate it up. He'd strut through the shop, giving orders to Tom and Sarah like he was already the boss. "Modernize this place," he'd say, pointing at Dad's designs. "Clients want sleek, not sentimental." Sarah's jaw tightened, but she'd glance at me, waiting for a signal. I gave none. My chest burned watching him parade, but I needed him cocky. I needed him to slip. At night, when the shop was empty, I'd sift through his tracks. Emails he left open on the office computer, invoices he forgot to file. My hand shook as I photographed every discrepancy, every sketchy receipt. My phone's gallery filled with his lies, each one a brick in the wall I was building. Sleep stopped coming. I'd lie in bed, the ceiling staring back, Victor's voice looping. "He's got no fight in him." My eyes stung, my fingers twitched, restless for action. Coffee kept me going, bitter and cold by morning. I'd catch my reflection in the shop's window, bags under my eyes, jaw tight like Dad's when he was angry. I wasn't just fighting for the shop anymore. I was fighting for the man he raised me to be. But doubt gnawed at me. What if Victor was right? What if I wasn't enough? Then Sarah pulled me aside one afternoon. The shop was quiet. The hum of the sander paused. Her voice was low, her eyes darting to the door. "Victor's meeting someone tonight," she whispered. "A lawyer." I heard him on the phone, talking about finalizing ownership. My pulse spiked, my throat dry as sawdust. I nodded, my hand gripping the workbench to steady myself. "Thanks, Sarah," I said, my voice calmer than I felt. She squeezed my arm, a flicker of loyalty that hit me harder than I expected. That night, I stayed late, the shop dark except for a single bulb over my workbench. I waited, my breath shallow, listening for Victor's car. My phone burned a hole in my pocket, loaded with evidence, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. I needed to know his next step, needed him to think he'd won. My hands trembled as I sanded a board, the rhythm keeping me grounded. The gravel crunched outside. Victor was here. I turned off the light, slipped into the shadows, and waited to see how deep his betrayal ran. The shop was dead quiet that night, just the hum of the fridge in the back office. I'd waited until Victor left, his car's taillights fading down the gravel road. Sarah's warning about his lawyer meeting burned in my head, pushing me to dig deeper. I slipped into the office, the air thick with the scent of old coffee and Victor's cologne. His desk was a mess, paper strewn like he didn't care who saw. My hands shook as I sifted through them, my pulse loud enough to drown out the crickets outside. Then I found it. A folder tucked under a stack of invoices, labeled workshop transfer. My breath caught, sharp and cold. I opened it, and there they were, forged documents with Dad's signature, scrawled in a way that wasn't his. My chest tightened like someone had kicked me square in the ribs. Victor had faked ownership papers, claiming the shop as his. My fingers traced the ink, my jaw so tight it ached. This wasn't just betrayal. It was theft, a middle finger to everything Dad built. I pulled out my phone, snapping photos of every page, the flash harsh in the dark. Sweat beaded on my forehead, dripping onto the desk as I worked. Each click of the camera felt like loading a gun. I couldn't confront him. Not yet. Victor wasn't just a snake. He was connected. The next morning, I met a lawyer, a guy named Marcus, in a diner across town. The place smelled of grease and burnt toast, and I kept my cap low, my hands wrapped around a cold mug. Marcus leaned in, his voice low. "Victor's got friends in high places," he said, sliding a napkin with a name scribbled on it. A local judge. My stomach dropped. "If you go head on, you'll lose. He's banking on you being impulsive." I nodded, my throat dry, my fingers tapping the table to keep from shaking. Marcus agreed to help, but his warning stuck. One wrong move, and Victor could bury me. Back at the shop, I kept up the act. Victor came in, all smiles, talking about big changes to clients while I sanded a table, my arms burning from the effort. "You're doing good, kid," he said, his hand heavy on my shoulder. I forced a nod, my teeth grinding. Every word he said was a lie, and every lie I swallowed made my blood boil. I saw the way Tom and Sarah watched me, their eyes asking if I was giving up. I wanted to scream, to tell them I was fighting, but I couldn't. Not yet. That night, alone in my apartment, I spread the photos across my kitchen table. Each one was a piece of Victor's plan, a map of his greed. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady, deliberate. I wasn't just collecting evidence. I was building a trap. But as I stared at those forged signatures, Dad's name defiled, a cold thought hit me. Victor wasn't just after the shop. He wanted to erase me, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for what it would take to stop him. The shop was my battlefield now, and I was done playing defense. Victor's forged papers were locked in my safe, but evidence wasn't enough. I needed him to hang himself. So I planted a seed. During a slow afternoon, I let slip to Tom, loud enough for Victor to overhear, about a big client, wanting a custom order worth thousands. "They're coming next week," I said, rubbing my neck like I was stressed. "Not sure I can handle it." Victor's eyes lit up, just for a second, but I saw it. Greed. My pulse quickened, but I kept my face tired, defeated. He took the bait hard. Over the next few days, Victor got bolder. He started helping with a fake deal, calling suppliers, promising discounts I never authorized. I let him, nodding along, my jaw tight as I watched him dig his hole. Every call he made, every email he sent, I screenshot from the office computer when he wasn't looking. My phone was a vault of his mistakes, each one a nail for his coffin. My hand stayed steady, but my insides were a storm. Anger, fear, and something else, something sharp. Justice. I'd lie awake at night, the glow of my phone's screen burning my eyes as I reviewed the evidence. Sleep was a memory. Coffee and rage kept me going. The shop felt like a powder keg. Sarah caught on, her eyes narrowing when Victor barked orders. Tom started asking questions, his voice low. "You okay, Brevis?" I'd shrug, say, "Just tired," but my knuckles were white around my tools. Victor didn't notice the shift. He was too busy playing king, telling clients the shop was under new management. Each word was a jab on my chest, but I swallowed it. I had to. The trap was set, and he was walking right into it. Then came the late-night showdown. I was in the shop, sanding a chair, the scrape of sandpaper loud in the quiet. Victor's car rolled up, headlights cutting through the dark. He stormed in, his face red, voice sharp. "You're dropping the ball on this deal, Brevis," he snapped, jabbing a finger at me. "I'm taking over." My heart slammed against my ribs, but I kept sanding, slow and deliberate. If you say so, I said, my voice low, almost a growl. He leaned in, close enough I could smell his aftershave. You're out of your league, kid. My hand froze, the sandpaper crumpling in my fist. I wanted to swing, to wipe that smirk off his face, but I didn't. I stared into his eyes, my breath shallow, and said, we'll see. He left, tires spitting gravel. I stood there, the chair half sanded, my chest heaving. The shop was silent again, but my mind was screaming. I'd given Victor enough rope, and he was tying the noose himself. But as I locked up, my hands trembling, a cold thought hit me. This wasn't just about the shop anymore. It was personal, and if I played this wrong, I could lose everything. The morning of the meeting, the shop felt like it was holding its breath. I'd barely slept, my eyes burning from staring at Victor's forged papers all night. My phone was heavy with evidence, screenshots, photos, emails. I planned this moment for weeks, but my hands still shook as I set up the meeting room. The long table, one of Dad's last pieces, gleamed under the shop's lights. Tom and Sarah were there early, their faces tight with questions they didn't ask. Clients filed in, Mr. Callahan, Mrs. Rivera, the big names Dad trusted. Victor strolled in last, his suit crisp, his grin like he'd already won. My stomach twisted, but I kept my face blank, my fists loose at my sides. I stood at the head of the table, my throat dry, my pulse hammering in my ears. Thanks for coming. I started, my voice low but steady. This is about the shop's future. Victor leaned back, arms crossed, his smirk daring me to choke. I didn't. I pulled out the folder, the forged documents landing with a thud. These are ownership papers, I said, sliding them across the table. Victor's work, not Dad's. The room went still. Sarah's eyes widened. Tom's jaw clenched. Callahan picked up a page, his brow furrowing. Victor's smirk faltered, just for a second, but I saw it. My chest tightened, not with fear but with something hotter, rage, finally unleashed. Brevis, what is this? Victor laughed, but it was thin, nervous. I didn't answer. I pulled up my phone, projecting emails onto the wall. His promises to suppliers, his lies about new management. Each one was a crack in his facade. Mrs. Rivera gasped, her hand covering her mouth. Tom stood, his voice rough. You faked his signature. Victor's face drained, his lips parting, but no words came. I kept going, my voice steady but sharp. He planned to take the shop. My shop. Dad's shop. The words felt like blows, each one landing harder. The room erupted. Callahan tore into Victor, his voice booming about trust. Sarah called him a snake, her eyes blazing. Victor tried to talk, his hands raised, but the shop's crew drowned him out. I stood there, my heart pounding, watching his world collapse. His eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw fear. Not smugness, not control, fear. My hands were steady now, but my chest ached. This wasn't just victory, it was justice for Dad. For me, for every night I'd spent doubting myself. Victor stormed out, the door slamming behind him. The room buzzed, clients promising to pull their contracts with him, employees vowing loyalty to me. But as the noise faded, I felt a weight settle. I'd won this round, but Victor wasn't the type to slink away. I stared at Dad's table, my fingers tracing its edge, the wood cool under my skin. He'd lost his grip on the shop, but what was he planning next? The days after the meeting were a blur, like sawdust settling after a cut. Victor was gone from the shop, his name poisoned to everyone who'd heard the truth. Clients like Callahan and Rivera pulled their contracts with him, their voices cold when his name came up. Suppliers cut him off, word spreading fast about his forged papers. My lawyer, Marcus, called with news. Victor faced fraud charges, his bank accounts frozen. I sat in the office, staring at Dad's old chair, my hand still on the desk. I'd won, but my chest felt heavy, like I'd carried a weight too long to just set down. The shop came alive again. Tom and Sarah worked harder, their loyalty a quiet nod to Dad's memory. I hired 2 new guys, trained them on Dad's lathe, and watched orders pile up. But every night, locking up, I'd pause at the door, half expecting Victor's car to roll in. My hands didn't shake anymore, but my sleep was still broken, my dreams sharp with his voice. You're out of your league, kid. I'd wake up, jaw tight, the echo of his betrayal louder than the shop's tools. One evening, I drove to the cemetery, the air cool, the sky bruised with dusk. Dad's grave was simple, a stone slab with his name carved deep. I knelt, my fingers brushing the grass, the ground cold under my knees. I kept it, Dad. I whispered, my voice rough. It's still yours. The wind carried my words away, but the ache in my chest stayed. Victor hadn't just tried to steal the shop. He tried to erase Dad, erase me. I'd stopped him, but the cost was heavy, not in money, but in trust. I didn't know if I'd ever look at family the same again. Back at the shop, I found a letter slipped under the door. No name, just a scrawled note. You think this is over? My pulse spiked, my fingers tightening on the paper. Victor's handwriting. My first instinct was to crumple it, to hunt him down, but I stopped. I folded the note, tucked it in my pocket, and locked the door. He was a ghost now, his threats empty. The shop was mine, its heartbeat steady, saws humming, wood shavings curling. I'd rebuilt what he tried to break. But as I stood in the quiet, the tools silent, I felt the weight of what I'd become. I wasn't the kid who trusted blindly anymore. I'd learned to fight, to wait, to win. The shop thrived, orders pouring in, the crew tighter than ever. Yet, as I turned off the lights, my shadow long across the floor, I couldn't shake the question clawing at me. Had I buried Victor's betrayal, or was it still buried in me? Victor's note haunted me for days, its words sharp as a splinter under my skin. You think this is over? I kept it in my pocket, a reminder of his venom, but also of my victory. The shop hummed with life now. Orders stacked up, the crew's laughter filling the air. Yet, every creak of the door made my pulse jump, expecting Victor's shadow. I'd won, but the fight left scars deeper than I'd admit. My hands, once shaky, now moved with purpose, shaping wood like Dad taught me. But my heart, it was still splintered. A week later, I heard Victor tried one last move. He called a supplier, spinning a story about reclaiming the shop. The supplier laughed him off, told me later over coffee. As a joke now, he said. I nodded, my jaw tight, but my chest loosened a fraction. Victor's name was mud. Clients wouldn't touch him. His accounts were frozen, and Marcus said the fraud case was airtight. His downfall wasn't just financial. It was social, professional, complete. I'd done that. Me, the kid he called soft. I poured myself into the shop. Sarah and Tom stayed late, helping me craft a new line of tables, sleek, modern, but with Dad's signature curves. We landed a contract with a big hotel chain, the kind of deal Victor dreamed of stealing. Every hammer strike, every polished edge, felt like a middle finger to him. But at night, alone, I'd sit at Dad's workbench, the wood cool under my palms. I'd trace the scars in the grain, marks of his hands, and feel the ache again. Not just for him, but for who I used to be, someone who believed family didn't break you. One morning, I found an old sketch in Dad's drawer, a chair design he never finished. My throat tightened as I unrolled it, his pencil lines faded but strong. I spent days building it, my hands steady, sawdust piling at my feet. When it was done, I sit in the shop center, a quiet tribute. Sarah saw it, her eyes soft. Looks like him, she said. I nodded, unable to speak. The shop wasn't just surviving. It was growing, stronger than ever. But Victor's note still sat in my pocket, a ghost I couldn't burn. I knew he was finished, his threats hollow, but the fear lingered, not of him, but of what he'd done to me. Trust was a crackboard now, one I wasn't sure I could repair. As I locked up the shop, the sky dark with clouds, I felt the weight of my new reality. I'd saved Dad's legacy, built my own, but could I ever build back the man I was before Victor's knife?